Hello everybody, Kite562 here with another episode of Tentacle Tales of Terror for you all, and today's episode is episode 60, At the Mountains of Madness, on this October 1st of 2024, so sit back and relax and listen to what I have to say about The Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. So be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content on this channel. This episode's going to be a long one, so hello and welcome you if you are new. I'm your host Kite of Kite562 Books and Manga Reviews, so sit back and relax and listen to what I have to say about my thoughts about finishing At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. So be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the content on this channel. I'm your host Kite562, so sit back and relax and listen to what I have to say about my thoughts on this 12-chapter story of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness on this October 1st of 2024. So for the plot, 4 expedition explorers from the Miskatonik University are investigating some frozen specimens that they have found in their search in Antarctica. With the 4 explorers getting there by aeroplane, even more unknown things may await in the darkness in this crew of skilled people. And so for side note 1, so 3 of the 4 explorers are Frank H. Pabodie, Pabodie, and he's an engineer and the one that started this whole expedition of Antarctica. And then there's also Danforth, Danforth, and he's a young college student youth or a student working under the protagonist Dyer, Dyer. So there's that. And then there's also Lake of Biology, which he's a skilled biologist of his field in Miskatonik University. All 4 of these characters are from Miskatonik University, plus of other slew of people on this expedition. Like there's skilled husky drivers, whatever you want to call them. Please leave a link down in the comments below, like mushers, whatever. Oh, I cannot think today, but hey, it's October 1st, so Halloween is going to be upon us before we know it. So, this story is taking me back to when I saw John Carpenter's The Thing for the first time on cable television, and man, it just, a lot of memories came flooding back of that film. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, so... along with the 2004 film Alien vs. Predator for the first time. This discovery of ancient life on page 789, I think something could be watching them from the distance. I'm just going to focus on these 4 characters. The team as a whole is massive. I had to reread some parts from chapters 1 and 2, but chapters 3 to chapters 12 really made up for it in this story, and I just thought it was a really wonderful experience, and I can see why so many people enjoy this story as a whole. And so, for the second side note, I love that I've only read 2 chapters of this story. It feels like I read a much bigger chunk than I actually did. I can appreciate what this story is going for, but it's kind of hard if we're only seeing from the geologist perspective or any of the other 3 crew members. Why would this team take 14 specimens off of this frozen discovery? That just sounds like a recipe for disaster in my opinion. I can understand that more specimens are needed so they have plenty of samples to take back to the Miskatonik University for further study, along with the knowledge that both Dyer and Pabodie have read the Necronomicon and mentioned the Elder Ones. Things are most definitely going to get worse from here. I mean, are these beings like ancestors of Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, or Shoggoth, or it's a whole slew of questions running around through my mind as I read these stories, but I can really appreciate the atmosphere this story's giving later on. And I have to say the most notable quote that popped out to me was, "Its 5-lobed brain was surprisingly advanced, and there were signs of sensory equipment served in part through the wiry cilia of the head, involving factors alien to any other terrestrial organism." At the Mountains of Madness, Chapter 2, page 795. And as always, I'll leave a link to the book that I cite from on the top right of this audio review. And so, I love how the first page of Chapter 3 blends both sci-fi, horror with an environmental thriller kind of feel to it. Lake the biologist is still shocked by what his team discovered, along with the now flaring up winds of the mountain dominating their campsite, it seems, and that just leads to another recipe for disaster. Like in the story At the Mountains of Madness, you have an environmental thriller with you're at the mercy of the mountains of the Antarctica, but along with that mysterious alien specimen that you have, could one of them have woken up from their icy slumber? Who knows? Who knows here? Just so many questions are running around in my mind. So, man, continuing on, even though the first 2 chapters were hard to follow, chapters 3 and 4 are really making up for it, with Danforth, the student, finally being mentioned in this story. Like, that's another thing that kind of bothered me, but not too much, is that the characters, the rest of them, get mentioned more in a more coherent sense within chapters 2 onward. So that's when I started really enjoying this novel of a story. And so as I was continuing, even though the first 2 chapters were hard to follow, chapter 3 and 4 are really making up for it, with Danforth, the student, finally being mentioned in this story. The weather that covers the mountains has started finally disrupting some of the teams on this expedition, with Danforth and Dyer now exploring an ice-covered labyrinth that slowly evolves into a town as the two keep on venturing deeper. The last page of chapter 5, Danforth seems to be more terrified of the place the more the pair venture in. It seems that the deeper a person goes in this place, the psychological trauma worsens as you move deeper into this icy maze. Some descriptions also sounded like Dyer was describing crop circles in a way, or hints of Mayan cultures as well, which again brings me back to the first time I watched the film Alien vs. Predator after reading chapters 5 and 6. So chapters 7 and 8 felt more like a journal entry from Dyer's perspective, or like one of those Resident Evil journal entries, if you know, you know. So it's fascinating to learn that more of these advanced beings as this story continues, with Danforth still being frightened by these creatures, or even statues of them for that matter, or what the Necronomicon called them, Shoggoth. Even though the Shoggoth of this icy place had some major advances, example being resistant to the elements and advanced bodily structures, the Shoggoth seemed to struggle with the concept of the mammalic family unit known to many animal species of the time. So I'm really impressed with Dyer's mental stability after all the chaotic events that have unfolded before him and his team. Danforth seems like he's really starting to crack. It's most notable to me on chapters 11, page 856. I'm really feeling bad for all of these team members at the mercy of unknown beings from 150 million years ago. I mean, think about it. This is just a recipe for disaster. I mean, they should have left everything well alone, in my opinion. But all in all, this was a really solid story. So for my final thoughts, I really enjoyed this story. However, I still stand by what I said before, that chapters 1 and 2 were really confusing for me, but chapters 3 to 12 really made up for it. I'm definitely going to revisit this story down the road, maybe on Halloween next year perhaps. However, if you're new to Lovecraft, I highly recommend this story and The Call of Cthulhu if you're starting out with reading Lovecraft yourself. So there's just so much you can choose from Mr. Lovecraft. I mean, watching a Let's Play of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth or the Call of Cthulhu PS4 game, but I highly recommend his source material stories. So yeah, that's my review of At the Mountains of Madness for this episode 60 of Tentacle Tales of Terror. So I'm your host, Kite562 of Kite562 Books and Manga Reviews, signing out. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody. Later.